Sorry, open. Mr. Ebert is not able to be here tonight, so I'll be hearing the commission. He may join us virtually, but it depends on how he's feeling. So let's take roll.
Bach, Hoover, West, Haniro, Shaw, and Wilkinson remotely. So we have.
You have quorum. All right. I'll entertain a motion for approval of the minutes from last month.
Move approval.
Second.
That's second, Shaw. Do we vote on that then or not?
No.
We don't have to, but
yeah.
you can just ask if there are any changes.
But you've asked for a motion and you've been given it, so I think you have to vote on it now, so.
Yeah.
I would agree.
All right, let's debate this for a while. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Yeah.
All
That's what
right.
changes.
I'll try to learn that better. Okay, so the first topic is continued discussion on the 2159 Allen Boulevard proposed development. We've had quite a bit of discussion last month. We've got some more information this month. Staff, I know, have met with the engineering consultant. We had several comments come in from citizens. I believe those all got sent to everybody. So you all saw those. Okay. Grace, you saw that? Comments? Okay. I think I'll start. I had a request from Chuck Nahn to about 3 minutes to give a summary of his comments. And if it's okay with the commission, I'll open with that. And if you could hold it to 3 minutes, we appreciate it. And if there's other comments,
Come to the table.
yeah, come to the table, Chuck. Okay, as long as we're not repeating concerns or questions, that's great. If it's a different, area of comment, we're open to it, so.
She'll start.
I'm sorry,
It
wait a
would
minute.
help if you come.
Yeah, we
the
need to hear
table
you.
So we can hear.
So, Dave?
Wherever you can hear me. I know my voice doesn't hear very
The mop mic doesn't help.
Yeah, all right.
So I'm president of the Middleton Beach Road Neighborhood Association because we are not engineers and wanted to better understand the details of the stormwater management plan that's being proposed. We asked Clean Lakes Alliance for a recommendation for a stormwater management expert. And they recommended Chuck Nahn for us. And that's why we're working together. Since this development project was proposed, neighbors adjacent to the site have submitted photos and videos of water accumulating on the site, flowing over Middleton Beach Road, east over Middleton Beach Road, into yards and sometimes through to the lake. These photos were taken when ground was not frozen during a variety of rain events, most ranging between 1 and 4 inches. And are evidence that this site is frequently totally saturated. So changing the site from 100% pervious in surface to approximately 70% impervious surface is a real concern for nearby neighbors. In developing the stormwater plan, it's important that any pre-development data reflect these conditions so that post-development data can be predicted accurately. Two examples are soil boring data, which determine the best place to manage stormwater infiltration. And secondly, more analysis is needed regarding the most appropriate hydrologic soil groups to use for pre and post-development flow calculation. This commission plays an important role in focusing on environmental concerns. And to our knowledge, it's the only commission focused on environment for this development. Whatever is built here will be here for decades and will have long-term implications to the health of Lake Mendota and the adjacent properties. We should not rush this stormwater analysis process, nor should we accept these in lieu of when solutions come up short. If building footprints need to be adjusted or made smaller to accommodate stormwater needs, then that should be done. We should not create new housing at the expense of jeopardizing adjacent properties or the health of the lake, which in turn can affect the entire Dane County watershed. We urge you to meet the site's environmental needs first and have them determine the building needs. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. Did you get the name?
I did not, but
Jenny
it's on the
Corwin.
sign up. I'm sorry.
Jenny Corwin.
Corwin.
Yeah.
G with a G. Jenny with a G.
Okay.
I'd like to give a comment now if I can.
Chuck's ready? Okay.
I urge the Water Resource Management Commission to request that the input parameters for green roofs and the silty soil conditions be changed and remodeled in wind slam, and that infiltration along the western side of the site be analyzed. Such changes would more accurately calculate the infiltration recharge on the Allen site. This analysis should be done before any decision is made on the infiltration recharge part of the stormwater plan. The WRMC has two choices tonight: either to accept partial fees in lieu of payment with the amount to be determined at a later date, or to not grant fees in lieu of at all. Accepting partial fees in lieu of would take away some of the on-site infiltration that this unique environmentally sensitive site desperately needs, place it elsewhere. I urge the commission to consider not accepting partial fees in lieu of. I am reviewing the stormwater plan in concert with the Middleton Beach Road Neighborhood Association. I have been involved in stormwater management for a very long time, including using the WindSlam model since 1991, serving on the Water Resource Management Commission from 94 to 2000, and also writing statewide technical standards for infiltration in 2004, 2005, including the SOC Tech Standard 1002 site evaluation for infiltration and 1004 bioretention for infiltration. The WindSlam model used in this plan, like most computer model, attempts to simulate real world conditions based on user selected input parameters. The output generated from the model is totally dependent on the input parameters. My two concerns for the recently revised stormwater plan pertaining to infiltration recharge are use of green roof and silty soil conditions. Green roofs and infiltration. In my expert opinion, modeling green roofs as large landscape sandy areas in windslam results in an overestimation of infiltration. The input parameter in question is green roofs. I have been involved in reviewing other submitted and approved stormwater plans for apartment developments in which the green roof was modeled in windslam as a roof only with no infiltration at all. This is a direct opposite of what has been submitted for green roofs as large landscaped areas with sandy soils, which outputs a large amount of infiltration. There are other places on the site more suited to infiltration, particularly along the western side of lots 1 and 2, where additional information should be considered based on the absence of an underlying confining soil layer. The second issue is use of silty soil conditions in the pre and post development. The real world condition for the soccer fields behaves as a clay soil based on numerous long-term observations from the, including standing water pockets after every storm of 1 inch or more, continual poorly drained conditions in the spring of every year, so the soccer fields cannot even be used until mid-June. Water running over and off the fields into the basement of Middleton Beach Road houses. About that. I'll stop here. Sporadic high groundwater table generated by high lake levels. WindSlam model does not have the capacity to model the infiltration from the complex soil layer existing in the soccer fields. If you select silty soil conditions, it will assume silty conditions exist throughout the underlying soil conditions, rather than the real world situation in which we have 2 to 3 feet of topsoil over our clay peat soils in most of the borings. In my expert opinion, based on the real world observation of a swampy, poorly drained soil and the underlying confining clay layer in the majority of the soil borings, the open space WindSlam input parameter should be changed from silt to clay to determine the infiltration rate in both the pre-development and post-development scenario. This correct input parameter is more suited to the actual conditions on the site. Thank you for consideration of my comments.
Questions of either of those two presentations?
I guess I would have a question for Eric to clarify something. So is it inappropriate to use the silty soils at the HSGB soil? Because you did flag that as something that had a great HSG classification has the greatest impact on peak discharge rate control modeling, and that there was some point of contention about which hydrologic soil group was picked. my understanding is that you went with the more conservative one. Is that correct? Because if you went with the clayey soil, it actually would have,
That's,
yeah, go ahead.
that's what I would say. These are both the infiltration and a peak rate control are a comparison of pre-development to post-development. And, you know, Chuck's suggesting that we use a less permeable soil, a clayey soil in the precondition, which is going to reduce the pre-developed infiltration and increase the pre-developed peak discharge rates. So then in the post-developed condition, the site would be allowed to release runoff at a faster rate for peak flow control and would have a smaller requirement for volume of infiltration.
So,
Drew and I went back and forth with this in the early stages of review. This went before Elliot Mergen and Jeremy Belusic at the county, and it was, it was a point of contention to get Drew to agree to model this as B soils.
So just to, if I could just rephrase that, doing what was suggested just now would actually be beneficial to the developer.
It's the way I would see it,
Make it-
yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. I'm not,
well, I'm gonna ask Chuck to clarify in a minute, but yeah, the whole approach is you use the same conditions, soil conditions, pre to post, so that you're apples to apples. Okay, so if you're gonna have more infiltration pre, you're gonna have more infiltration post on the soil. And you have less if you got a tighter soil pre, tighter soil post, it's a relative, so the relatively difference, you don't know how much impact that's going to have till you actually run the calculations. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Chuck directly, why do you suggest that by having a tighter soil as a precondition, thus less infiltration going on and less stay on, right? That's going to alleviate runoff, not exacerbate runoff, frankly, in the post condition.
If we're talking infiltration or peak flow.
Well, let's talk both.
Okay, peak flow is definitely using a D soil in the post-development. It's the least conservative. It's not the most conservative. You're giving
For peak
more
flow.
runoff of D soils than you would with a B soil. So, it is, as Eric said.
Can I just ask, just to clarify, you're having more runoff, a higher runoff rate, not, okay, go ahead.
The infiltration, I think, we're saying that both the pre and the post should be clay soils because that's what's indicative of what's out there based on what we see. We're not advocating for using, one for the other. We're just saying be uniform.
Right.
Based on the soil points that we see out there, it sure behaves much more like a clay soil than it does as a silty.
And was that not the original proposal from the developer's engineer to use a tighter soil condition pre and post?
D.
The D, yeah,
Houghton muck is classified as an ABC.
Yeah.
So,
it acts, yeah.
and there's fill on top of this Houghton muck. The standard is, if you're out in a rural area, you would model Houghton muck as a D soil. If it's in a drained condition, which is what we would consider kind of any urbanized area with utility trenches running through it, et cetera, then we model it as an A soil. That's what I originally asked Drew to do. He came back and said, well, I don't think that's right either. And we eventually agreed on this B soil based on the characteristics of the, 2, 3, 4 feet of fill that have been placed on top of this Houghton.
Questions? Grace, any questions?
Not
So-
at this time.
Okay. I want to be clear, you know, and I think this is understood. We're not proving or disapproving the stormwater management plan. We already reviewed it. We already talked about other aspects of it, peak flow last month. We're only talking about and Eric and I went back and forth because I had to get educated on some of this. There's something called infiltration. That's the terminology that the state code uses, which is the same thing as saying stay on. Infiltration consists of water that soaks into the ground and water that evaporates from vegetation.
It
Those two
doesn't move
components.
sideways off.
Those two components. Well, once it goes underground, it can go any direction it's gonna go. You can't.
Yeah, it's gonna go to the lake.
Once it's below surface, right? Recharge is only the component that goes into the ground. Okay? Both those are requirements of the ordinance. And we're only asking, or the city's only asking for, and the developer's asking for a fee in lieu of because they can't meet the recharge portion. So I'm gonna,
Well, they can't meet either, but.
I'm sorry.
Performance is the worst.
Correct, that's the driver. That's the driver for the fee in lieu.
So that's
far.
the driver for the amount of the.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. Chuck, I'm gonna ask Chuck again, because he and I worked together for 30, 40 years also. The issue with the wind slam using the green roof, okay, that doesn't have any effect. Well, it's not going to tip the scale on the recharge issue, only the infiltration issue.
I'm not arguing the recharge at all. I think the recharge, I've looked it over. I'm talking about the infiltration part of it. There's two components to the fee in lieu of, one's for recharge and one's for filtration.
Mhm.
They have not changed the recharge at all. And they're a little bit, maybe, but not much. And that's the amount going into the ground. But the infiltration, by modeling it as a large landscape area with sandy conditions, the roof, that's where I have difficulty with it. It should be modeled, my estimation is roof only,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
possibly a roof with bioretention, but the only outlet for bioretention would be evapotranspiration. I think it's overestimating greatly the infiltration because, it's a large landscape.
It's treating it like lawn. Right. Do you have an opinion, Eric, now, whether if it was treated as impervious, let's call it, or from an infiltration point of view, you get less infiltration, would that drive the fee in lieu of to that side of the equation rather than the
No.
recharge side?
No, I mean, I think I could pick apart Drew's model. There's a couple of things I would change, and I think the 70.9% infiltration is probably overstated, but no, it's not going to be reduced. Maybe five to, I'm going to say 5%.
Yeah,
But I did not remodel it myself.
well, that's not your job.
Chuck has a point. I think that modeling the green roof as a sandy soil is not conservative.
Not representative. I would say not representative of what's going on. out there.
Yeah.
I don't.
So I guess just to touch on these couple points, modeling green roof and wind slam, talking to Dane County staff, DNR staff, City of Madison staff, the current way to model it, current accepted way to model it is to put it in model as, I guess the specific soil texture might change, but it is to model it as green space as long as you meet a specific thickness of that media, which we are meeting. So they all would approve that methodology of modeling the green roof. And on the silty soils, like we talked about, we're gotta compare apples to apples. You can't say it's clay in the wind slam models for infiltration. Say it's it's silty in the peak flow runoff, so it's more infiltrated on that side. So that's why we're doing silty soils there, because of what we're using in HydroCAD. We did run numbers to remove the green roofs and model them as roof areas. That changes the total infiltration by 0.7 inches out of the 19.2. So approximately 3% change there.
If you, let me just make sure I got that right. You took the 19, how many square feet?
19,000
19,900 square feet.
Yep,
Change that to roof as
Yep.
opposed to landscape.
yep.
You come up with 0.7 inches less than.
Because all those areas are still draining to, well, not all of them, some of those areas are draining to infiltrative surfaces, so they're getting double counted in our model. So if
That's
you
what I was
eliminate one
wondering.
of those, it'll still go to another infiltrative practice.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but so the under drain system for the green roofs would still discharge to a landscaped area? Some of them?
Well, the northwest large apartment building that drains to the bioretention basin.
Okay.
The other building drains to the wet pond, and
Because there's no infiltration there.
there's no infiltration there. There's some evaporation happening there, but that's pretty minimal. But you're getting a lot from that bioretention basin once it hits there. So that was the change there. We also analyzed using the clay soils for the infiltration portion. And as Eric mentioned, you are changing your target when you change that pre-developed condition. So it actually goes to 76.74 compared to that 75.88. So when you change that from clay, and we just have the green roof removed in these two comparisons here. So our current model without the green roof in it, again, 75.8%. If we switch all of the ground level soils to silty, it would go to 76.74. So it actually raises it a percentage point.
That's another question, I think, for staff, I guess. Eric, on the packet, there's a section right after the stormwater plan. I'm on page 11 of 735, where you got the question and answers, questions 1 through whatever. Did those
Yes.
questions come from?
Comments?
Those are Chuck's first round of comments.
Okay,
with
he's either responding to
records
each of those.
responses.
That's what I was wondering.
And after that, it's another round of comments from Chuck on the revised submit.
Okay, so all these 27 are from the original questions, or are they combined?
No, this is from the first,
Okay,
the November, the submittal you saw in November.
all right. Obviously, I didn't read every page of the 7. All right.
I do have a brief summary whenever it makes sense to talk about what we changed to the site and the impacts of that.
Go ahead.
So after we met last month, we took a look at the site and identified some areas of impervious surface that we could remove. We found about a little under 5,000 square feet of impervious surface. That would be the secondary underground entries going to the lowest level of the building. We think we're able to internally route the parking levels. So we'll just have the one smaller, shorter connection to parking. So again, that removed about 5,000 square foot of pavement. We also looked at the green roof on the future larger buildings where we have a little more space and capacity for green roof. We added about, we increased it by about 50%, added about 5,500 square feet of green roof. I know there was requests for additional green infrastructure and requests for removal of impervious surface. So we tried to hit on both of those. There was also some comments from Eric about incorporating some offsite runoff. He provided a map, some watersheds. Looks like there's about 20 or 130 acres draining through the storm sewer that runs along the two sides of our site. So we incorporated both those areas into our model to make sure that we're accounting for what is flowing through the existing city infrastructure. We also, once we eliminated those underground parking drives, we were able to reshape the basins. There was a couple of comments about kind of how the basins are shaped and placed on the sites. We're able to address a few of those, get some separation from the building, and make sure we're planning for that temporary fire department turnaround, so we're not having to rework the wet pond. But we were also able to add a little bit of square footage to both the bioretention and the wet pond to increase peak flow capacity as well as some of that infiltration. And we were also, Eric also requested us to look at evapotranspiration and evaporation in the practices. And that's really where we're seeing the biggest jump in that infiltration number. It's from the evapotranspiration in the bioretention basin. In the previous versions of the model, we weren't considering evapotranspiration in there. We were getting zero stay on in that large bioretention basin. That's a pretty common way to model it. But we decided with Eric's guidance to add in that evapotranspiration. That was kind of the primary driver of that 5-inch jump. Like I said, only about 0.7 of that really was attributed to the green roof, additional green roof area. Adding landscape area doesn't add up really quickly. But so that was the biggest jump there. So we're hoping that, we listened, we went back to the drawing board, not completely, but we definitely made some changes here that I think are help. Another item we looked at was separating these watersheds and utilizing both large storm sewers we have, and diverting some of that flow to the south to make sure that it's not going to the drainage area that ultimately doesn't have a great overland flow out of the lake. Utilizing that Marshall Park side of the site to get rid of some large portions of water.
That Marshall Park, say that again, that you're diverting from
Yep.
part of the site?
Yeah, so a little less than half we diverted from that northeast corner to the south into that 54-inch storm sewer that runs along the south side of the site.
And that's connected to the map that you had? showing
Yeah,
the different
exactly.
sections.
Yep,
Okay.
that was the 110-acre watershed is what's running through that pipe currently included in the.
And is that going through City of Madison property?
It is in the city of Madison. It's Middleton storm sewer, and it's within an easement. The city of Middleton
Okay.
easement.
So I want to interject something. We're only looking at this infiltration recharge component. I am still reviewing what Drew provided last week, especially in regards to offsite watershed and what's happening with those storm sewers. Chuck has indicated he's, wants the opportunity to discuss all that with me, and we will do that in the coming, after the holidays. So this is not a formal approval of the stormwater management plan at this point.
So we're only asking for one component, which is the
Yeah.
infiltration.
And the other thing is, Drew's provided a plan for the overall site, but the only
Right.
piece of this that's going before Plan Commission is just these two eastern lots. So, there'll be a review to ensure that this thing will be phased properly, which it might be kind of obvious. The plan now is to build the two main ponds along with the two eastern lots, so you think it's gonna meet, it's gonna perform just fine with that.
Overcompensation. So
So it'll be all the ponds, the wet one and the two dry ones.
are
Yes,
part of phase one.
Likely, yep.
Yeah. So I always hesitate, Drew, I don't mind you know my hesitation. The western half is proposed, things can change. It's all these calculations are based on certain, assumptions made about what's going to happen on the western half.
Right. And by submitting this plan, we're essentially committing to that impervious percentage that we're showing on here.
Right.
If we increase that, we're coming right back to you guys to have you look at it again and approve any changes that we make.
And that, I know you can't predict, but we're talking a year or two away probably for western. You don't want to speculate.
yeah.
Okay, that's fine. That wasn't fair. Dave, you got something to bring up?
I think that Drew did a good job of reworking what we have in front of us. And my big desire is that the city had some more definitive guidelines on when bees and boom should be allowed or not allowed. We don't have those. It's very subjective, and I mean, this is not easy. I understand where the property owners are. They've had a lot of bad water issues, and I wish I knew. There's a lot of water coming in here from thousands of acres. The 7 acres is not going to change things tremendously, but we also don't want this really to have any real impact on things. And I don't know if this really will or not. I don't know enough about it. You know, if I were like, I knew hydrogeology or something maybe, but
Well, and the other comment I'll just make, just more or less editorials that, like in 2018, when the lake level comes up like it did, it doesn't matter what you've got here. Okay,
oh,
Middleton Road's going to be in trouble. 2018 repeats itself, no matter
What
what
about
happens.
for smaller?
Well,
Yeah, 2018 was 16 inches over Black Hawk. That's a ton of rain. And less in other areas, but still way more than, I'm reading in the newspaper right now about big storms being 4 inches of rain.
yeah, yeah.
And that's
yeah,
what's got
I
me
mean,
worried.
yeah,
A 4 inch rain
people
is
always,
go-
I'm just saying, people always kind of imagine that scenario, which is certainly of my lifetime worst case scenario. But when the lake, if the lake comes up under certain circumstances, again, none of this management measures or anywhere else in the watershed for that matter is gonna keep that area, that neighborhood
Yeah.
dry.
I
Okay?
guess, will these facilities keep water from running onto the road and then over?
In 16 inches of rain or?
No, in a 4 inch rain, because right now it does. Will
In-
this
in the-
improve it any?
Well,
Which road? Are you talking about Middleton Beach Road or?
Middleton Beach Road.
I'll have to double check to say for sure, but I believe in that size storm event, we're not hitting any of our overflows. Everything is going through pipes.
So it could actually improve it then.
That is the intent of the plan, is to make sure that overland flow across Middleton Beach Road is reduced in the proposed condition. So that's what the models show. In the, up to the 100 and 200 year storm.
and so our vote on this fee in lieu of is just for that component. And it's a recommendation, if I understand it correctly, to the plan commission and to the council.
Right.
And they can decide
What they
to
want.
accept or not accept the recommendation.
And this is for fees in lieu of.
For the fees in lieu of. Mike,
Okay.
Lisa, you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would make a motion to go ahead and accept the fees in lieu. I haven't heard from Grace yet.
Your motion. If that was the motion, I'm appreciating this conversation and the discussion and aligning with it as well. And I too agree, wish that we had better guidance in the city ordinance and what we could do, but based on what we have, yeah. So sorry, not very eloquent, but just sort of +1 to all the comments everyone's made.
Well, and I do appreciate everything that Drew has done to, you did what we asked. You
Yes.
reduced impervious surfaces and you incorporated more green infrastructure, and that's what we wanted, and it had an effect. So
So did I hear you make a motion or?
well, I'm gonna make the actual motion with all the important words in it. So I move that we recommend approval of the fees in lieu request for infiltration slash recharge with the final amount to be determined by staff after further review and anticipated adjustments to the stormwater management plan.
Second.
Well, I'll give it to Grace.
Okay. Read the last phrases so I know what you said. You said,
With the final amount to be determined by staff after further review and anticipated adjustments to the stormwater management plan, because Eric had said.
because of the other issues here. Okay. Any other discussion on that motion? All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Unopposed. Okay. Got it?
4-1 west descending.
5-1. No, I'm sorry, 4. Yeah. Drew didn't vote, sorry.
Doesn't. Motion carried regardless.
All right, thank you. And I appreciate all the time and effort. And this was given, I think, due diligence, serious consideration, and we're not ignorant of the concerns that everybody has about offsite impacts.
Not at all.
So I trust Drew and Eric will work together to work together to make this the best possible situation.
And if I may add, when this does get to the plan commission, I'm still going to see if there's anything the city can do about reducing the width of the impervious, well, the street, basically. If
To
there-
the north there.
Yeah, because we still have the parking.
Right.
As an opportunity. Again, it's not on the site, so it's not something the developer would do, but
But that's runoff that's gonna get going somewhere.
right. And
Yeah.
I see now how
Yep.
wide, for instance, Lake Street is. Every time I drive to the health club, I'm
Harbor.
like, ooh, this is too wide. Why did we let it be so wide? So maybe there's something the city can do to further reduce the amount of impervious surface. in
Is that a
the-
plan commission responsibility?
Probably,
Public Works would have to do it, but the plan and recommend a referral to them to take a look at it.
Is that,
Site plans under review is a separate process.
it's a separate project, separate designer, everything else? It's not,
No, it's a separate process. It's
okay, but the street itself, is that under design right now, in the design process?
no,
Oh, okay.
we could ask the developer's contractor perhaps, instead of a separate project to make changes within the right of way,
I see.
if they make sense.
Yeah, okay. All right. Right, thank you. On number 3. City annual monitoring agreement. I don't know, Eric, if you want to say anything about it. I mean, I've been, as long as I've been on this committee, we've been partially funding USGS gauging stations and on Pheasant Branch. It's to me, a very unique situation that we have here, that we have this data and can generate information for our own modeling and calculations in floodplain based on real data, not just tables and charts we get off of federal documents. So I'm certainly supportive of continuing our support for this monitoring.
I thought Todd was gonna be here, Todd's not.
Oh,
But he is not. But I can try to describe this without him. What's happening is two things. We've been funding this through TIF District 3, and that will go away after next year. So we can still fund this contract through that, but then I think as a part of budgeting for next year, for 2026, we're gonna have to find a new source of funds for this. And the second thing is, we've been paying $35,000 for this since they started with these other two gauges. 2017, I think, before I was here. And costs are going up substantially. So with whatever limitations Todd has internally, what he proposed was the cheapest way to do this is for us to contract, or not contract, but be invoiced directly by the analytical
The lab. Yeah.
And then he doesn't have to pass through those overhead costs, and we end up saving money. But could be up to $20,000 more than we paid for this last year.
that's gonna go through 20,000, it's gonna be through TIF 3.
For 1 year.
For 1 year.
For just this year.
And what happens?
We'll have to find a source if we want to continue funding.
Is this a 5-year agreement or is it an annual agreement?
This is just a 1 year.
1 year.
Do other municipalities do this?
Well, I shouldn't say it so quickly. I'm not aware of.
The other
This
gauge we
longevity.
have is a part of a network of gauges that's funded by various municipalities and, some cost sharing with either CARPC or the county.
I guess the question is this information giving us 30-something thousand worth of information for planning and development?
It's hard to, in my mind, lay out a spreadsheet that says, here's how much benefit we get from this.
Yeah,
30,000.
especially since we have become so developed.
what it is doing is, another project, the thing that EOR is doing, this citywide floodplain modeling, which eventually is going to become floodplain delineation, is all being verified or at least corroborated
With
with
this
monitored data. And that's very unusual in my experience to have that data.
Yeah,
So getting those floodplain boundaries correct, or at least as correct as they can be, has a huge, I think, could have a huge economic financial impact on the city of Middleton's properties, right?
right. But I guess I'm looking at it in terms of who else is getting benefit from it and shouldn't they be paying also?
Mhm.
Well, should be if they're willing to.
Yeah,
Can.
two different questions, I know, but with the state of municipal budgets,
Can we, this is just spitballing here, don't take minutes. I don't know, I don't know what the city's authority is, can you add a developer's fee for?
well, I think
Like
this is a
an,
discussion for
cost.
the,
like an impact fee?
Yeah, I didn't want to,
Jim, I think this is something we can approve this year,
yeah,
but we need to look into these issues for future.
yeah. Yeah, it's relatively easy to approve money, right? TIF money.
Right,
It's
yeah, tip money, and it's for development, and
I think
it makes sense, and
it's not hitting the taxpayers.
impacting area that is clearly in the TIF district.
Right. But
But
next year.
for the rest of the city, is it that helpful for people that live in some Hills or Stonefield or whatever?
Well, anyway, I agree that it's something to be thought about. And now the other issue, I think, is that the government, in the past, the USGS share was almost more of a 50-50 type of arrangement in terms of costs, I think, and way back in the good old
Yeah.
days. I think one reason nobody from USGS is here, there was a government shutdown looming, and I guess it's been averted, but I don't know for sure.
Well, that explains why Ted did not respond.
That's what I'm thinking. Todd wasn't in the office because I know Bill Sobek couldn't make a meeting today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That whole thing.
I'm not sure the shutdown's been averted.
Well,
The latest
okay.
news,
Yeah, delayed or.
Trump has
Yeah.
thrown lots of monkey wrenches in it.
Okay.
Well, I think, I agree with everything that has been said, and I was going to suggest that, Eric, you arrange for Todd to present to us sometime, not a year from now, because it'll be too late for budget season, so maybe in July, they could come to us and give us a presentation on why we should continue this.
I think it should be earlier.
I was thinking that too, because of a monthly meeting rather than a bi-monthly.
Yeah, and I mean, July is right at the end of when everything needs to go into.
Gives us less time to prepare as staff.
Typically, Todd makes an annual presentation to us on the prior water year. And I know he just made the 2024 presentation to Yahara Winds Tuesday, yesterday.
So maybe in the next 3 months he could.
So I could ask for that in let's say February.
Yeah.
He could do this at the same time,
Now, of course,
assuming the government's back up and running.
yeah. I mean, what he'll present, which is all he can present, is, the monitoring data trends, what it's showing us, how runoff reacts to rainfall, and it's measured in water quality issues also. Can he explain to us how we can use this data in real day-to-day decision-making
That's
process?
The important
Probably
part.
not. That's not his. He doesn't have that
Yeah,
responsibility.
right.
Yeah.
It's almost more like somebody from the planning department as to where are the areas that are going to be developed.
Yeah. I
He
guess
does say in his memo that the data provided will help to determine the relative contributions of phosphorus and sediment to Lake Mendota from the North and South Fork, effectiveness of the settling basin at their confluence and to determine trends in discharge loads and concentrations over time.
I all.
And I know it's not, sorry, I know it's not day-to-day decision making, but the water quality and what's happening with Lake Mendota and within the chain really does influence, I think, those sort of broader economic, if you think about attracting people to this area and development and things like that, right? So it's a little bit more bigger picture, not day to day, but something to keep in mind as well.
That's why we need additional municipalities helping pay for it.
Is this for, yeah, this is for 3 stations, right? North Fork, South Fork, and
But
Yes.
Confluence,
yes, like Madison,
This is just for north
Pittsburgh.
and south.
north
And
and
the
south.
gauge on the main stem is a separate agreement with CARPC,
Oh,
and that's what I was.
so that station is
Bigger network.
is shared by the county. Okay, so just, I missed that point. You know, you already
What?
said, there's 3 stations we're talking about. The one that I always think about on, just off of Parmenter on the main channel, that
Mhm.
one is a joint paid for station
Oh, okay.
with the county. And I assume CARPC's,
And other municipalities
probably-
are in this.
Madison
agreement
should be
too.
included in
Well,
that too.
There's more
CARPC is part of-
gauges than just that one.
right, they got, other stations, yeah.
But that one is measuring water from both South and North Forks.
It's
So from
measuring
Madison.
it's measuring downstream from Confluence Pond.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah.
measuring Madison runoff
Well,
from Black Hawk and so on. All of that goes into the confluence.
I understand hydrology here. Yes, I get it. I understand where the water comes from,
It's,
but you can't say it's Madison water. It's, Madison, Middleton, town of Middleton, town
and
of
yeah,
Springfield.
that's what I'm saying. It's all of it.
So you're gonna get town of Springfield to kick in?
Mhm.
Good luck with that.
Why isn't the state doing this?
Why is the state doing this? Okay, all right, next topic. We gotta take a vote, I guess, right?
Sure.
We have to approve,
You could take a motion too.
our motion, that's first. Grace, want to make a motion?
Yes, I'm just pulling up the language on my screen. I move that we approve the FPC/CC of the 2025 agreement in the amount of 35,000 and anticipated sample analysis cost of up to 20,000 invoiced separately to be funded from TIF 3.
I will second that.
Any other discussion?
Can we
You wanna-
clarify, Grace, to recommend approval to FPC/CC?
So what I wrote.
Yes, thank you. If I so amended.
Learned.
So
She
amended.
did say to be funded from TIF 3, right?
Correct.
Yes,
She
Yeah.
did.
yeah. Any other comments, questions, discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Can I make a second motion?
Sure.
That we start looking into funding of this project for future.
Yes. I'll second.
Okay.
So what I think I heard is investigate.
City will investigate.
Funding
Future funding,
future.
Post, you want to say post
Funding.
25 or just,
future funding.
okay.
Source.
Yeah.
Is that the city investigating it or we, this commission?
Well, it's sort of
Well, do you want staff or commission?
the staff to do it.
You know the answer to that question.
I did. I was getting an answer for Lisa.
Okay, we got a motion and we got a second from
Good
David.
shot, David.
You move,
I
you
made the
move.
motion.
You made the motion, I second. Yes, correct. And
Any other discussion? All in favor?
I
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Intergovernmental agreement with the MAMSWAP group. Is everybody familiar with what MAMSWAP is?
Yeah.
Got it?
I'll move that we approve this agreement for the 5-year period with total contributions of $59,772 to be funded by the stormwater utility. And I recommend approval because finance and personnel and council already approved it pending this group's approval.
Oh,
Well, then I'll second.
There
Easiest.
you go.
This is the best deal going. Just, I don't have any problem with
Yeah,
this.
right.
I mean, it makes sense for the countywide effort on the information education
Yeah.
requirements.
And I really appreciate that in the past year, it seems that we in Middleton have been doing a lot more to get information out to residents.
I
So,
would have to credit Brent for that. I mean, Eric mostly has worked with Brent, but we're feeding him information and he's able to produce it.
Yeah, the social media.
Push it out there, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
kind of some neat stuff.
I don't think I have the skill set or the capacity to do that additional work.
that's good to know.
Thanks. Any other discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you. All right, Spring Hill and Middleton Hill Southeast Basin Rehab projects. Eric and Richard want
Yeah, I
to
will
update us on that?
summarize. So this was supposed to happen last month. The consultant is not here at my direction, just to save a few bucks. These projects have been on the list for a while. We've got a preliminary design finally. The intent. And I want to show.
And these are on the capital plan right now, I believe.
Oh, yeah, they have been.
Right. Right, they have been for a year or more.
So Spring Hill is just south of this new Ziegler development, off a high road,
On the west side of High Road.
west side of High Road. It's, I think, 90s era. We need to clean sediment out of it. And then I was, thinking, and soil investigations confirmed that we could get some infiltration out of this. So we're going to introduce some dead storage. And that just means storage beneath a piped
Out of surface, huh?
so the water will be trapped for this 9 inches until it infiltrates. One aspect of these plans was she has it set up as an alternate bid to pipe the discharge over to High Road. But it turned out that the developer for Ziegler wants to take that water and take a little credit for it. We talked about this
Oh, yeah.
briefly when
Yeah,
we
yeah.
looked at Ziegler. So that's good. That'll save the city money to not have to make that connection. We're allowing a little bit of a credit for the development. We're improving infiltration. That's basically heading right down that western tributary into the Conservancy.
So that, to me, that's a big benefit to
Yeah.
that tributary, giving it a base flow, or at least added base flow to keep it colder, cleaner. Yeah.
And then the other aspect of this is to return it to a more native vegetation management scheme, which is what was planned in the 90s. And that was all included in the rate study.
And the soils down there seem coarse enough to,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, I'm not putting in 2 feet of dead storage, just 9 inches.
Yeah.
I think we could go up to a foot.
What's the drainage rate of this?
Oh, boy, I can't tell you that offhand. It's really the neighborhood that was developed with this, like to the water tower and west over.
That's Spring Hill.
Yeah. What's the road where Graver currently is?
Springvale.
Spring Hill,
Lynn,
Lynn,
Lynn.
Oh, yeah,
right,
okay.
Lynn Court even,
Um,
companion, that one.
tell me how it's gonna tie into Ziegler. I'm confused about, I know you talked about it last time, but
I think this is perched.
This pond is very high up, and currently the outlet cuts across a berm where we've got a water main It discharges to a drainage path through Ziegler Farm. A drainage path that the Ziegler children were not happy with. They've complained that it's eroding. Somebody's been dumping, concrete chunks and whatnot to try to control this probably for decades. So that was the intent of diverting that. I figured that could also be a developable lot if the drainage way was removed. But that's not the current development plan, so we don't need to make that diversion. The other aspect of this is building a more suitable access to the pond off a high road. Right now, we're cutting across the Ziegler property to get there. So that needs to stop.
So you acquire an easement, or what's gonna
So
still
we
private?
can make it over to High Road on our own land. There's a retaining wall that we'll need to cut short.
So the city does own to High Road right now?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Kind of isolated.
Yeah. This is where we access through now. And sorry, Grace, you can't see this. And I got a temporary easement from Ziegler a year or two ago to access through there, but this will end up as a private lot or just to the north. So
you're hoping the construction would be next in 2025?
well, if we can get your blessing, yeah, I want to turn the consultant loose. This, out of these two projects, this one might need to wait a little bit to see how Ziegler shakes out
Yeah,
development plans.
yeah.
But we'll get to Middleton Hills Southeast Basin in a minute, and that could hopefully get bid, within a few months here and get that rolling.
Any wetland permit issues with this one?
No. Good. Not with either.
Okay.
I move. Are we ready for a motion?
Not ready yet.
Not yet?
Got to hear about the second project, right?
Well, you can
want
make a motion
You
on
want to
this
do it
one.
individually? Okay. Yeah, both being done by same design engineers. Have that right?
Yeah.
And they're not going to be bid out as a two project or as a single bid though, as far as contract construction goes.
I don't think we've decided that.
Okay.
It might make sense to bid them out separately. I don't know. It's undecided, Jim.
All right. Do you want two motions, one for each project?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's best.
Grace, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I move that we recommend approval of the preliminary plans and continuing work to bid the project being this Spring Hill Basin project. Understanding this work may be delayed until development plans for the Ziegler Farm subdivision are finalized.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Nay. Okay.
Okay,
South Hill. Am I going too fast, Randy?
No,
Right.
it's an Hill Southeast Basin. And this is right along Pheasant Branch Road as it curves.
That's the gem of our neighborhood there.
Yeah.
So this pond was built not in compliance with current standards. It's not deep enough to qualify for.
isn't it a natural kettle pond? That's what I was told originally.
Yeah,
I don't think
certainly,
that's true.
Nancy, you don't think it's true?
No, I
You
think
think they
Pheasant
built-
Branch Road was built up and
Mhm.
locked it in.
Okay.
And I did look at an old topo, but I think I had 10-foot contours. I don't think it's a kettle. I think it's a natural draw or a historic.
Okay.
I think it used to drain free. So the intent here is to remove accumulated sediment. We'll probably end up having to line it because I think we're gonna penetrate into a sandier layer. So if we want it to hold water, we're gonna line it. It's got a commercial watershed, so DNR will require we line it.
Okay.
It's a dirty source area.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to think if we can get a variance on that one if we wanted to. The idea of infiltrating is kind of attractive to
Yeah,
as far as the
it
conservancy
is.
goes, but it's not gonna look, it'll look
Right.
yucky, you know,
Yes,
aesthetics. And it is kind of a visible place.
yes.
Yes.
As it continues to accept sediment, that
I know.
filtration rate will
It'll,
eventually go down.
yeah. All right, never mind. I didn't say anything.
Is it possible there are going to be any trees, desirable trees disturbed during this work?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Kevin Short's been looking at this, and that is part of it, is to
It's a couple
minimize the
coming out.
disturbance area to as little as possible along these slopes.
I know there were one or two trees coming out.
Yeah,
I was going to ask if we could add some back in higher up on the banks.
well, I can ask Kevin if he wants some improvements.
Because they've had one or two that-
Want some improvements.
They've had one or two that have died over the years, up closer to the,
And this is not a parking department responsibility at all, right? This is strictly a stormwater.
No,
no,
That'd be a forestry comment.
This
it
is-
does have a trail around
this is a
part of it.
parks maintenance area.
Oh, it
Yeah.
is?
Spring
Mhm.
Hill Pond is a public works maintenance area.
Yeah.
This is parks.
So this is maintained, more carefully as in
More.
Savannah.
Okay.
And there is a trail that goes along Pheasant Branch from the big lot off of Glacier Ridge all
Yeah,
the way
yeah,
up to
yeah,
here.
I've walked that,
That's-
yeah.
that's
And the
right.
trail
This
going-
is-
And it goes up to the street, I think.
And that'll be maintained.
During construction,
Well,
maybe not.
post,
Yes, post, certainly.
Yeah.
So I'm also lifting up this berm a little bit to make sure that when this overtops, it heads to Pheasant Branch and not
yeah.
To those houses.
properties.
That's a good idea.
The cost, I don't know if anybody looked at this last month, the cost for this one went up. And that is because there's not much space to stockpile anything.
Mhm.
So they might have to do more hauling with topsoil, whatever, due to
Yeah.
lack of space.
It will
And
be
making that
difficult.
trade-off to disturb less of these.
Well, Eric, right now, there's a problem on that road with they're building a porch on Middleton Glen. And driving that road is difficult with the construction trucks parked on each side.
There's a narrow road.
It's a
Yeah.
narrow road to begin with,
Yeah.
and it's really narrow.
Traffic calming.
Yeah,
It's narrow just at lunchtime when there are people.
yes.
Certainly.
Mhm.
So staging,
Staging is going to be difficult.
difficult on this project.
Now, they might be able to stage some in the parking lot above it. Some of it. If the owner of that building will let them park there.
The steep slope, track it in there.
Yeah, I mean, the intent here, Susan, was to only access it from Pheasant Creek Road. and try to
Okay.
minimize, what's happening on this.
I'm not sure the owner of the building is that acceptable because he took away the neighborhood's ability to park back there. And
He doesn't want dump trucks in this.
I'm sure he doesn't want those, but the parking lot stays empty, so.
First can get good scones every morning.
Yes, they can.
That's where I am most morning.
Yes.
All right.
Great Cafe is
Um,
excellent.
I'm excited about, it'd be nice to get that cleaned up and
Yeah.
re, established and a little more How's it looking?
And the plan's not gonna have a negative effect when it goes across Pheasant Branch
So
and
are we,
down to the
is that-
Conservancy.
is that in our inventory as far as TSS is in phosphorus control, MS4, blah, 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 blah?
Yeah.
Gonna be a little bit better when we're done? Should be.
Well, I think when I wrote that plan in 2016, I took credit for
And you can take more credit for it, hopefully, when the construction's
it.
done.
I figured it was just barely close
Made
to
the cut.
standard.
Okay. You need a motion?
I would move approval with all the things that need to go with it.
Loosely following the recommendation.
Yeah,
Approving the preliminary plans.
Continuing work to bid.
Do you want trees in there?
what,
You want to put
with
trees
some more trees put in.
and that's gonna be part of this project? to
Yes.
install the trees, okay.
Install a couple of oak trees.
What do you want this is a good question. Then are you suggesting the stormwater utility pay for new trees?
Somebody's got to. Part of this project. It will help on infiltration before it gets to the
It
pool.
wouldn't have to be as large as what we put in for street trees necessarily.
No, just
Yeah.
some more oak trees
What
in
was
there.
your question?
So
Does that need to be in the motion?
trees
Yeah.
The trees? Okay.
and
They're on my mind today.
I'm gonna add
I heard.
to your motion. Do you want to include this amendment for $3,125 to the contract because of delays in schedule? This is the
Yeah.
contract for design of this
Yes.
basin, right?
Yeah,
So the motion is to,
Plus the amendment?
yeah,
Oh, I was
Approve.
gonna get a second or another motion.
Yeah.
Would be a third.
you want to do it all in one swoop or you want to?
Two makes more sense, I think.
okay.
All right, so right now we're approving the recommend approval of preliminary plans, continue to work on the bid project with the addition of trees to be funded out of the stormwater utility.
Okay.
Second,
Second.
Dave, second. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Thank you. Opposed? That's everybody. Now you want a motion, and I will make a motion to approve an amendment to amendment number 1 to the Rainmaker contract, the amount of $31.25 to finish the project through the bidding phase. You don't need to read it.
So, Grace.
This all still comes out of the utility budget somehow, right? Not gonna, or does this come out of capital
This is all stormwater.
Stormwater.
utility?
So was that
That was a
that
motion.
was a motion by you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Second,
That's great, I think.
Well, Grace,
Grace second.
give it to Grace.
Sure. Yes.
We'll take that as a second. I wasn't sure. All in favor?
Aye.
No other
Aye.
discussion. Sorry, no other discussion. All in favor, aye. And opposed. All right. Fee in lieu of. Thoughts and comments to commission members on fee in lieu. Yeah, we need to,
We've got to.
we need
look at
to
this.
tackle this sometime. And I don't know the formula. I don't know well, I've seen the formula.
Yeah, well, I've got concerns that the city has developed and it's getting fairly dense. There are areas where simply, if we put something in and charge fees in lieu of, it's not protecting the outside areas.
Yeah.
And we can't keep putting in
If
new
you-
stuff.
if you state that will accept fees in lieu of, and you don't have any
Criteria.
rule on this, then you're opening yourself up to get someone upset with you about,
Yeah.
or opening yourself up.
So how do we make it a more
We need to,
objective way to figure this out, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're seeking.
Well, one option might be to designate an overlay zone of some kind. I don't know if any other municipalities have something like this, kind of like an environmental corridor,
You know,
which in our zoning code, if you want to build and it's gonna affect an environmental corridor, you can still do it. You just have to do different things. There are different more stringent requirements that apply. And maybe there's a way to tie the fees in lieu, or I don't know, structure the fees in lieu so that if it's in this type of area, the fees, you have no option
Maybe we don't give
except
them,
for the exception.
Well, I think we should be for,
Let me hear the rest of this.
Are you talking about a different rate of charge or?
Yeah, I'm just throwing anything out, like, I don't know if this is legal, if this has been tried and it has failed, or if anybody else is actually doing this. But two things, one, possibly charging higher rates in these overlay zones, like the environmental corridor, or a zone that we might create. Or not allow fees in lieu as an option. And that is probably not
Legal.
for the prohibitions that you showed us last time.
what do these places that don't have fees in lieu of? Because I know the county was talking about going to fees in lieu of, so they don't have it.
They just say it's maximum extent practicable and they approve the plan, I think.
Nobody has fees in lieu.
Yeah, we're rare. So aren't there times when they simply can't meet the standards and it doesn't get approved?
No,
No.
I think it was, because there's always this MEP phrase.
No, but I mean for these other places
Well,
that
that's
don't
not-
have fees in lieu.
Right, hear me out.
Okay,
You don't have fee in lieu. You got an ordinance that says you must do X, Y, and Z. If you can't do X, Y, and Z, do it to the maximum extent practicable. Come as close as you can. And if you
Oh.
demonstrate you come as close as you can, you're approved. Am I, Eric, am I
Yeah.
saying
I
that?
feel like I've said this, thousands of times by now. It's not that second email I sent you guys today, I would say the Allen Boulevard site or, any other
Right.
one, they've met maximum extent practical.
even if it would damage other properties, potentially.
Well, I don't know if you could, the whole premise is that you can't get the soils to infiltrate. So you're not really,
That's a site, to me, that's a site where we shouldn't be asking for infiltration. It doesn't infiltrate.
that's why the ordinance says we're prohibited from infiltrating there.
Yeah.
So we're prohibited, that, I was gonna bring this up earlier, but so we're prohibited from requiring infiltration on that site, and yet last time we asked the developer to come back with the ordinance.
Right, and previously, we've said, we understand this isn't going to improve your infiltration number, your performance metric. But we want green roofs, to mitigate through evapotranspiration, and that's a tiny number, but it sounds good and feels good and all that stuff. The DNR code would exempt a site that has soils that are too tight. And it would prohibit a site that can't meet groundwater separation, and the amount of groundwater separation you need varies based on the
Type of
source
land
area,
use.
the land use. So like you don't want to
Dirtier the
infiltrate
land.
off of a gas station.
Right.
Because people are gonna spill gas. Or some industrial facilities that, their roofs are dirty because of what's coming out of their exhaust. Don't infiltrate that water. The Allen Boulevard site, I'm not sure why our ordinance calls this a prohibition. I would call it an exemption. Just because of the difficulty of getting water to infiltrate. If it's poorly infiltrating now, you don't want to concentrate it into a basin and try to force. it
Yeah,
through.
that's what I'm having
Just gonna
lots of
fill.
trouble.
So Eric, just to capture that point, in the prohibition section, there are things that you, like the gas station example that you did, where it's appropriately called a prohibition, but in this case, it's more the
Yeah, an exemption.
It's an exemption. Making notes for future
I
changes.
think,
So this could be land that's exempted from any future building because you can't infiltrate.
Well, that's, the whole Airport Road Business Park, the whole bowl
Right.
along Allen Boulevard, all of those soils
Or wetland soils.
Yeah,
infiltrate.
So 50 years ago, that's Allen Boulevard site, and a lot of sites would have been mapped to wetland, right? Most likely.
Absolutely.
And I'm just trying to pull the wetland map up now. It's just called hydric soils, I think, is all it says.
Yeah.
So, and the reason it's not a wetland today is because it's got a lawn that's been mowed and used for a soccer field. Am I?
Well,
It's filled too.
And filled, yeah.
It's been
Yeah, because I
filled.
imagine south of Mendota Avenue looks the same as north of
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I asked the question last time, why is this considered new development when obviously something has already happened here? It doesn't have a building on it,
Mhm.
but it
Yeah.
was filled and.
I think fill by itself would not qualify as
Right, well,
development.
no, that's,
Yeah,
yeah,
that was the
that's what
answer.
I'm saying, but when I think of, pre-development, I
Yeah.
think of the north side.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
which is
Tagline.
in a
Yeah.
rare wetland.
Yeah, that's 1910 or so, something like that, I think. I love that map.
I cannot, this
Yeah.
is 1906.
It's really.
There's a toolbar in there. Or if you were to download it, go on the left side, download it to the left. There's an arrow down way to the left.
There you go. Love that. I got that hanging on the wall.
Yeah, this is such a terrible software.
Where is my scroll bar?
You can't drag it.
Can we call some
No.
kid?
Oh, you didn't really want a scroll bar, did you? Wait, the TV's a touchscreen, right?
Right.
Doing something.
It's nice with the mouse, yeah.
You just scroll.
Right to left is harder with the mouse.
Oh, yeah.
Turn it sideways.
Can't. Anyway.
Hey,
Push the
well,
page up.
all right,
anytime
I'm gonna
bottom.
give up on this. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
it's fun though.
Yes, it was all wetland. It's a swamp.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a lot of the area around here.
Yeah. That's,
But as opposed to, okay,
Yeah,
as opposed to the Ziegler farm, which had wetlands and those don't really need it and you can't develop there.
Yeah.
Allen Boulevard site, mine is a wetland, but you can develop there because it has fill and it's lawn and all that kind of stuff.
Thanks, Daphne.
So
Right, because-
that's the frustration that we
Yeah,
all have
right.
because we know, it's not
And
a good
developing
place.
in some places, no matter how good they do on developing it, there will be potential danger, damage to existing residents next to it.
but
And that's
Lisa, I'm
not
gonna
right.
ask you to just put you on the spot again. You're saying that if somebody had, if the city in some fashion said to the developer of Allen Boulevard, we're not gonna allow any buildings there, period. The landlord's just stuck with a grass field. That would be considered a taking.
Yeah,
And they
Right.
could, and what's the recourse to that? They would then ask for compensation
no,
from the
they
city?
sue and,
They would
and,
sue.
and then the city would have to allow development.
But what happens if,
or
Or purchase it.
compensate them for.
Right,
loss
for the loss of-
the revenue.
And they gotta tell.
Revenue that they may gain from.
Right, and I'm gonna say we could put an 80-story Trump Tower up there and
Yeah.
it's worth a bazillion dollars.
what's the protection
Okay.
for the people on Middleton Beach Road when this causes damage to their property?
Well,
Can they then?
I'm not
sue
an
the developer?
attorney, but I mean,
I think we're
Or the
kind of
city?
straying from the fees and lieu discussion.
that's true. Good point.
Well,
It's a good
but
discussion.
it's relevant.
It
Well,
goes,
but we should keep it in the abstract. is
Okay.
what I'm saying.
it goes back to me to say, how are you gonna decide MEP? To me, that's still a difficult one to nail down. We had last week, I made the speech, or last month about, well, if you put a single family house on that lot, maybe that's all you can allow for development, Do we have to allow multifamily 4 building
Yeah.
parking lot? Is that
But I think
Where's the line between those two
Well, it was
extremes?
originally zoned single family, and then in the rezoning, it went to
Again.
avenue.
But now it
development.
is rezoned.
yeah,
Once that happens,
We're
it's,
very far off of.
Yeah,
all right, sorry.
Okay, well, Jim, we could change this to an area that's not for sale. Say, your house, if we somehow put more water going into Milton Hills ponds,
Yeah,
you could be affected.
right.
And should we allow somebody fees in lieu of to develop that land that would dump more water in there that will flood all those townhouses and homes?
Right.
And that's what I've got a concern is a situation like that. We shouldn't be allowing development
But you need
that's going
to
to.
resolve that issue. We're not gonna hit it, but that's a constitutional / lawyer discussion, right?
But the fees in lieu of is making it easier to do it. That's my point.
I'm not sure about that. Not sure I agree.
If they can't meet the standards and we're giving them fees in lieu of,
But every ordinance has, like I said before, has standards up to the MEP. That MEP appears in the state code, right? And it appears everywhere. So that's the get out of jail free card, is the MEP. So any developer can say, I'm doing everything I can. I can't do no more. You got,
at least with fees in lieu of, we get something out of it.
this with fees in lieu of, you get some compensation.
can we at least get the fees in lieu up to something that would be reasonable with
Well-
today's dollar? Because when was the last
This
time we
is what I'm
raised that?
looking for out of
No,
this
that's-
discussion is what do you guys want me to look at? So you want a fee study?
Yeah.
Higher fees.
Yeah, relevant to today's economic condition for constructing stuff and so on. Or comparable with today's dollars versus when this was established, because
Okay,
have we ever raised the
Do we,
fee?
I was gonna ask that, do we know when it got set up?
MSA looked at the fees several years before I came here. Honestly, I cannot find the
Would it have gone through?
record of the discussion, but they did not end up changing.
That's what I thought, because it hasn't gone to council before 2006.
It'd be nice if we could tie the fee to something concrete, and so it's not necessarily indexed, but we just have something to anchor it to, so when whatever changes, the fee goes up,
Yeah,
that we can review every 3 years or something.
Yeah.
inflation.
Well, I
At
like
least-
that idea because there are two aspects of the fee. One, it hasn't been increased for inflation. Two, do we know what the original fee was based on? And it should be based on something.
Yeah,
It's a very difficult thing to try to translate this into a dollar figure.
Yeah.
Like I could tell you, here's how much a biofilter costs, but
it
same as
needs-
any of these individual examples that we're not gonna talk about. It's so site specific.
Well, it needs to be high enough that we developers aren't trying to develop in bad areas.
I don't know that that's the purpose, but I mean, if it's 10 times that, that's okay too. But I mean, we need to have it something that we can have some change that will improve the situation, and we have enough money to make that change. And whether that discourages the developer or not, I think that's sort of a separate discussion, because we're not trying to be punitive in this.
No, but we want to protect the surrounding properties.
And
That, once Allen Boulevard got rezoned, that triggered the whole the whole
Yes.
scenario of now the developer can come in with a financially feasible proposal.
Because before that, it was single family housing.
Right.
well, part of,
So you, no matter what the fee in lieu of was, once that thing got zoned the way it was,
part of the reason for the zoning change was that
Change
This has something to say.
sorry.
Well, that's fine. I was just going to ask, there's a statement at the end of one of the clauses, sorry, that says fees shall not be used for routine maintenance and repair of stormwater control facilities, channels, ponds, or structures, or for relocation of waterways. And I was curious if there was some history behind that statement, or if that's helpful, if that statement is actually helpful, or if it actually impedes the funds that we're collecting for fees in lieu to being used to actually try to help stormwater management.
I'm
Grace,
glad-
that's a good
That's a
question.
great
glad
point.
she found that, because I was just thinking the other end of it is our ordinance should give us an indication of what's
To
gonna
use it
happen
for.
with the
Yeah.
fees. Because that was
It
one of my
does.
first questions on this
Well,
commission was, what do we do with the fees?
I guess I've had a problem for a long time. We used to fund a lot of Ken Potter's graduate students' projects. Did they help the city any? Did they help provide an alternative stormwater flow and added knowledge? But
So
Yeah,
it seems like
Let's
the
move
amount of the fee, the
Right.
basis for the fee, the use of the fee.
Okay.
I would even ask, is there any way to change, because Eric, you've said this 1,000 times, that the name fee in lieu makes it sound like the developers are getting a
that's
pass.
the same.
yes,
So is there another term that we can use? I know impact fee has special
That's got
meaning.
connotations to it.
Right.
So I understand that.
is it state law that prohibits this being used for construction of?
The state law doesn't do anything with it.
No.
Oh,
I think it's our
this is-
own ordinance.
It's our own ordinance does?
The program is pretty unique to us.
We can
And
change that.
To answer
Right.
Okay,
Grace, I would guess it's the intent that this is meant to improve, make improvements, via a new facility.
Right.
Um,
It was supposed to compensate. If you couldn't get here, you try to get infiltration somewhere else.
yeah,
Build an infiltration basin somewhere else.
it's
we haven't used
No?
it for that.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I just have a couple comments that I'm thinking about here. Maybe with now a stormwater utility, that could be removed from there to allow those funds to be used,
By the utility?
to use by the utility to try to, or directed by the commission to use by the utility to enhance projects that have, been silted in or, otherwise.
Or even for this, it's a particular one, but getting an extra storm sewer going to the lake.
It could be offsite upstream.
Yeah,
And the other thing I wanted to kind of say is that the planning is always trying to increase density, which we're all kind of against urban sprawl, which means more density. And with more density, you have this. So,
Yeah.
so you're fighting against each other
Right.
mhm.
for the same goal or
Well,
different goals, but the same effect of increasing density. You're going to have more runoff
Well, if
and have to deal with
density
it.
going up, it's not as bad as,
So can we get, for me, and maybe you just need to point us to some links for myself, is what the actual calculation is, because I don't know what it is. And when it got developed, if we can find out that out.
yeah.
And what are the prohibitions? And Grace just read them off, but point out how it can and can't be used under current language. And it's all in there, I know.
Don't I have this highlighted?
Yep, the
Sorry
part I
for
was
scroll-
reading was the very last part of your highlight there. Last sentence.
Right, so no one's ever asked me for that schedule. Thank goodness. Um, No, I mean, I have the schedule, but no, I don't have the background to like what was how was it calculated? How does it equate to any particular site or a generic? site?
When did the city put this in place?
I don't know. I think it's been here for a while. I mean, some of the old plans.
Lauren might know.
Warren would,
Which predate serious stormwater management, I can tell that this Water Resources Committee was telling people to get infiltration.
Mhm.
Like really old stuff,
Yeah.
80s.
okay, well, when I was on Lakes and Watershed Commission, they were talking about doing a fees in lieu of program for the county. And I specifically asked, is there situations where you would not grant fees in lieu of and just the project had, and I was told, yes. That's what we don't appear to have.
Well, but that's a different governmental agency.
It's a different government agency, but it's what, That's what I'm thinking we need. There are
I like
a
some water.
few,
You said, I'm sorry, we're gonna digress again. Shouldn't do that.
well, it's the concept. This is where I just heard it from.
How do you, okay, so you're gonna sit down with Verbecker with, why can't I remember this guy's name?
Andrew
Drew.
Mears.
And figure out what the fee in lieu is gonna be, and that's gonna be, you're gonna figure out, well, you're X cubic yards of infiltration short, or acre feet,
Oh,
whatever you
no,
calculate.
it's much simpler than that. It's
Okay. What
10
is it?
cents per square foot. Well,
Sounds like a
it's
very.
either 10 or 20 cents
Per square foot of what?
Very
per
arbitrary.
square foot of
Also sounds
impervious
cheap.
times your
It's way too cheap.
performance deficit. So
10
let me
cents?
walk you through one. Let's say they're required to get 90% infiltration, you know, and they only are getting 50%
Make it easy.
infiltration. So they've got a
45%.
40.
Make it easy.
I was trying to make it easy.
Oh, okay, 50.
40. So that's
Oh, I see.
40%
Gotcha.
short.
Yeah.
So it's the total square feet of impervious times this 10 cents.
Of the
times
entire
40%,
development.
The whole development.
East and west portion of this Allen Boulevard one?
Yeah, except they probably would have asked, well, can we only pay the fee in lieu for phase one?
Right.
Because we don't want to just, you know,
Yeah.
be your bank. For,
Oh, yeah.
That I could
you know,
see.
to it.
Okay.
Perhaps if the
So it's
second-
10
So
cents
is it
per
really
square
10
foot of
cents?
impervious. Okay, now I
That's
know.
way too cheap.
Well,
Well, you guys
Well,
see the
again, we-
numbers come through, some of them, like the one for the development on John Q. Hammond's and Greenway Boulevard.
Right.
It's only a few $1,000s, and that's pretty typical. This one's gonna be like $20,000.
That's still,
Really?
It is, but I
Sounds
still
less,
think
but
you guys,
I mean,
for the infiltration part,
yeah,
and
okay,
they had another 20 and another 20 for missing rate control twice.
okay.
I think you're still kind of thinking of this the wrong way. What you want is a more ironclad or detailed process
Yeah.
to determine maximum extent practicable.
yes. I do.
Because it's not that we're granting fees in lieu. We're just asking them to pay for their deficit. What we're really agreeing to is, have you reached E MEP?
Well, in practical is very subjective.
But somehow I know that's the words, that's the wording you gotta live with. And
Well-
we gotta come up with what that means.
Why do we have to live with it? It's our ordinance. Can't we?
can't we
Actually-
change it?
It actually is a state language.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's state language, but that's for their stuff. Can't we have our own?
Yeah, I'm open to suggestions, certainly.
City will impose fees willy-nilly
Well-
based on what we want.
Well, let's ask the question, can the city be more restrictive than if you hit the 2% number? And
No,
you
that's,
can't be more restrictive than that, can you?
I'm certain that our attorney would say, don't go above it.
That's the limit.
I mean, there are municipalities who are ignoring that. And I think they're just, we're not gonna
Skating
get
around.
that advice out of our attorney.
That, what this says is you only have to use up to 2% of your plot, your land development site for, is it just for the infiltration component or all stormwater? Just the infiltration?
Just the
Just
infiltration.
the infiltration. Once you hit 2%, you've hit MEP, period.
MEP stands for.
Maximum extent practicable. Practicable, not
Yes.
practical.
Yes. We think the same, well, practical.
So yeah, so that 2% is in fact the line in the sand if you want to live and die with that.
Oh,
Right, so most places, would, you know, if the site was exempted from poor soils, so even if they build a pond or a dry pond, an infiltration basin, they're not gonna get any infiltration out of it. So they're just off the hook,
Mhm.
and no fees in lieu are collected. If it went through Dane County would say, okay, we get that you're exempt from infiltration, we still want 2% of the site devoted to
Green
some
space,
kind of
whatever.
green facility. And you're still not paying any fee, any fees in lieu. It's the only thing different about the Middleton ordinance really is that we collect this money. And it sounds like we're, got a slush fund somewhere. And we're taking payoffs to give the developers a break, and we're not.
Right. No, that's,
Change the name.
Hmm?
That's
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
a different name
Yeah.
for it.
you don't want to call it slush fund.
No,
No.
well, it's a pretty sorry slush fund. I mean, slush fund. what's
Doesn't make
that?
There's money in there.
Money in it.
Yeah.
Record this, all right? Okay, but that did help clarify for me. I appreciate that, Eric, how you just captured that. And, kind of a little light bulb is this 2% number is one that's a value that other communities do live and die by. Where now, I understand there's always, these guys on this particular development actually going to 2%, right? Is that my understanding?
Sure, yeah. And that's another thing I could pick apart. He's using you're supposed to use the floor of the base, but you can also use all the pervious pavement that they put in.
Yeah,
That's,
okay.
so
that
he's
counts.
well above 2%.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, developers are gonna go along to get along to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But there's a breaking.
Yeah. Yes, I
Well-
still have a problem with, we aren't protecting existing properties.
I can't fix the world.
And that's
They
something I
never should
think
have
we
built
should
houses
be
on
able.
Lake Mendota to start with in
No, they
1930.
shouldn't have.
And wait, what was that when they built those? Oh, that was Town of Middleton, no doubt.
Yeah, that was it was way before the city of Middleton was a city.
None of that would have been built today.
No,
Yeah,
no, that's,
but
can't fix those.
Okay, so we've
All right.
got, changed the name.
But now I know how the formula, I know how it's calculated, and I know that we can, if you want to lean on something, lean on that maximum area.
On the 2% or
Yeah,
MEP?
well, 2% defines MEP when it comes to infiltration. Now, it doesn't help us with the rate control stuff, does it?
Well, and when I came on board here, started talking to the county reviewers that we worked with, they said, we're not gonna allow fees in lieu for water quality treatment, TSS,
So you
or
mean,
for peak discharge.
Oh.
And then Elliot turned around and said, yeah, I'm okay with letting this 1 year rate control bust happen. And that, I think that's good judgment on Elliot's part. I
Yeah.
don't have a problem with that. But then we ended up collecting fees in lieu for it, and a substantial, somewhat substantial $20,000 they're, gonna owe us for it. There's all kinds of language problems in the ordinance. What it really says is we need a downstream practice.
yeah,
That's impossible with
Right.
this infiltration problem.
Thanks.
It says we're gonna pay for it, which we haven't been doing. And it makes no distinction for a site that's served by a regional basin that was paid for, by a subdivision development, let's say.
so there's other languages with the ordinance besides just the nuts and bolts of what we're trying to wrestle with.
Oh, yeah, the ordinance as a whole, I think needs reworking. And at some point, I don't know if it's when the entire chapter is redone, but I think there needs to be some preamble language to get at the points you've been trying to make, Eric, about, basically explaining what this is.
Needs a kind of a definition to it all.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I don't want people to be thinking, since they didn't get what they asked for in their comments, that this commission or the city or the staff is okay with their properties being damaged. I liked Eric's comment in the letter or the memo from last time about what your goal is. Your intention is to avoid that damage. So I think it's I think we're doing a poor job communicating if people walk away thinking, well, they just don't care that my house is gonna be
Right.
damaged.
Right.
Mhm.
Because the whole point is, no, this should prevent that from happening. You know, we've seen the photos of flooded parts of a particular parcel, and it's like, okay, well, that's already the case.
Right. We're not gonna make it any worse.
We're not gonna make it any worse, right? So somehow you
Best
gotta
we
be
can
able to
Well,
turn that into better language.
Convey the message.
Yeah,
and there are a lot of property owners that when there are huge rains, have bad things happen to them,
exactly.
whether there's been development recently or not.
But the
But we
first
don't
time,
wanna make it
after this
worse.
development occurs here, the first time we get water in somebody's basement on Milton Road, it's gonna be
Right.
that developer's fault.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That development caused my basement to flood.
Well,
It's a good thing I have reams of pictures from redevelopment conditions.
Yeah. Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
but that's the perception and you can't.
right.
All right, I don't know. So is there an action item for this
No.
topic?
No, I just wanted your thoughts on what you think needs to get fixed, and I think we've got a few of them out. Yeah, see what I can do.
Okay. Number 8, we're gonna skip number 7 because Warren's not here.
Do we need a motion to
The table.
Deferred.
until a future meeting?
I would move that we defer it.
I'll second that. That's number 7, Grace. All.
Yep.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry, Jim, did you second?
I moved,
Yes.
didn't I?
No.
Wes,
You moved.
I
I
did.
seconded, okay.
They got that.
Yeah, but I gotta write the name.
Well, you must take.
Right, I will. Over and over again.
Staff will briefly discuss next steps for the utility. Underline briefly, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just thought, we never, or I never gave you an opportunity to rejoice. pat
Give a high
yourself on the
five, man.
back.
Yeah.
I guess Rich and I are not allowed to do that.
Nope.
That's not, is that
No rejoicing.
rejoicing in the city government?
Done anything to thank the
Yes.
the branch?
Emily wrote a very nice letter to Pheasant Branch and that got distributed to the Pheasant Branch
Okay,
members.
good.
She did a nice,
Good,
thank you. Appreciation.
because you guys have been so helpful on all of them.
City wasn't supposed to be advocating for the.
And they
It
did,
doesn't,
they
So
technically,
I'm saying that because of that, they don't really get.
right, we don't get to rejoice.
Yeah.
yeah, I know.
Fortunately, as an elected official, I didn't get that same restriction.
Right.
I did wonder if that was if you were in any concern about what can and can't you do as an elected official? You can advocate all you want. Is that the bottom line? Okay?
I didn't get complained about on the first ones.
Yeah,
I worked with you guys.
yeah. Okay, so you got, so your budget is set. I mean, you prepared a budget.
We'll have a lot of funds. The foreman position, the field position is in process of being advertised, I think, basically.
That's a full-time year-round FTE.
It's a full guy, 80% for the stormwater utility and 20% to still drive plow in the winter. That works out great.
So then was Public Works pays 20% of that cost. Okay.
The stormwater utility tech position, we haven't gotten rolling with any, I need to write a job description, et cetera, et cetera.
Where do these people sit? When they
Close
arrive,
by.
in your lap.
Exactly.
Eric,
Yeah, they'd both be under direction. But practically, the field guy will be under the operations manager, just.
I have a request, and once we get this person on for street sweeping, it needs to be,
It's not just, we
well,
already got street sweeping people.
no,
right?
but since it's going to be under our control, under stormwater control, what needs to be done is not having this set schedule based on a calendar, but look at the weather conditions so that all the leaves that are currently right now in the curbs get swept up before it starts
You
snowing.
want an analysis done of what trees drop their leaves when, I mean, because we could.
That might, I think you can just,
Being facetious somewhat.
Yeah,
I think you guys already, most cities do, up their intervals in the fall, I think.
but they stopped really early this year.
I think we sweep, well, they do because they do follow to a point the leaf picker because there is
No, okay, but that's
Yeah.
crushed debris that doesn't,
extra sweeping.
yeah, they hit those areas that this leaf sucker had gone through more frequently. But the thing you got to remember is the speed at which they sweep and the number of miles of road that there is.
There's a lot.
Yeah, to give you a real answer, I mean, there's only one sweeper.
We maybe need another sweeper. Because we have added, I don't know how many miles of streets.
Adding
2,000.
streets isn't that big of a deal. It's when the trees mature
Yeah.
that the problem comes in. So
Yeah.
the more recent trees, like probably
But,
North Lake is probably starting to produce more trees than
Yeah.
it did 10 years ago, whereas the bigger trees in Saks Woods,
yeah.
I mean, that's just a small incremental increase.
But what I'm talking about is the weather also, because this year thing was delayed very late, but they stopped at their normal time for collecting leaves. And there are more leaves left on the street. So it needs to be calibrated more with weather conditions in terms of when trees drop leaves.
Cities who comply to get maximum benefit for the MS4 permit, they gotta submit a schedule, and it's a schedule, it's still a schedule. You can't
Yeah.
just have a guy ready in the seat when it rains the next.
Right,
day before.
but the normal frost date's mid-October, killing frost.
Huh.
This year it was probably close to December 1st. And what I'm talking about is they need to be flexible to get the leaves that didn't come down until
Yep.
mid-November.
By the same token, you can't spread water on a road with the leaf or the sweeper to have it freeze and create a dangerous situation with a wet surface.
Right. But the weather this year was warm enough, they could away with that.
The field tech you're looking for, is that what other, would they be doing other inspection type work, and what other things you think about, just top of your head?
Yes. I mean, the idea is that as he's out, he's gonna be,
He or she?
he or she is out. They will be making notes, filling out inspection forms that we don't have. You know, everything's in GIS, but I'd like to have everything accurate in GIS. So over the years, things are gonna get corrected.
They might inspect private facilities and
Maybe,
once,
but it's probably too much on their plate. But would make note of like illicit discharges and things like that. It already has, frankly.
I don't want to listen. I know. What do you looking for a person with a 2-year degree from a tech school, or just experience? I don't know how you.
Well, there's an internal probable.
Play more doors.
I think so.
He's just,
He's leaving. Elvis has left the building.
No. Sir,
Oh,
so that's-
Warren's 50th.
Oh.
He's sick.
Or
Just
Take a
bring it-
picture and send it to me.
Text him here. Thank you.
might, bring him what's left. Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah.
Sticky back.
They're lovely.
yeah.
Did he make,
They're
did
very
Warren
nice
bring
and
these in,
clean.
you're saying?
It's like a crate.
No, these are homemade from my house.
Oh, did you make
Pass them
some?
around, pass them around.
I made the brown sugar ones. My wife was really up her cake and
Get those away from me.
Baking.
decorating game.
Yeah.
No one's ever disappointed in those brown sugar ones.
Yeah.
Take one of those from my slide.
So, anyway, so you got resources to get a job description put together and what kind of
Yeah, so I think some of this field work that's been kind of deferred, that we'll make progress on it soon.
okay.
The other stuff yeah, I mean, we can't get too far into personnel, but Sean
No.
announced his retirement.
Oh,
So that's.
is he old enough
Yeah.
to retire? Oh, yeah.
Yes.
No, I've been here almost 24 years and he was here 8 when I got here.
Wow.
Okay,
So he's 32, 33 years in.
You're saying?
Oh, yeah, the
Is it
word is
public?
out.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you blurted it out at a meeting last Monday.
There's no official date, but it's gonna cause problems.
we've got all sorts of people retiring.
Right, police chief
Mhm.
just went.
EMS next year.
All right,
Anyway.
we can continue. All right, let's close the meeting now so we can discuss if you want to. So anything else on the utility you want to bring up?
No,
Other future meeting items? Um,
Not, they just will be deferred tonight and Grace's.
and we'll look at language ideas you might have for the non-fee in lieu of.
The ordinance.
that probably won't happen for
No.
January, but.
Yeah.
Grace, are you on board with January perhaps?
Yes, pending. I got called out of town on a work trip for that night, and so I am still trying to figure out whether or not I have the capacity to join virtually. But I will have that answer for you by the end of the week. Otherwise, February is good. If February is good for the commission.
Either way,
So as of now, it'll be the regular Wednesday in January, is that right?
15th, I think.
15th, yeah. This meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
Great.
Bye,
Thanks, Grace.
Grace.
yeah.